Welcome to another episode of Mastering Cybersecurity, developed by baremetalcyber.com. Let's dive in. Active Directory, AD, is a directory service that centralizes how organizations manage people, computers, and permissions across a Windows network. It stores identity data, enforces who can sign in, and decides which shared resources each person can use throughout the environment. Companies rely on it because a single, consistent source of truth simplifies user onboarding, device joins, and access decisions that would otherwise be scattered and hard to control. Attackers focus on it because compromising the authority that grants access can unlock everything the authority protects. Thinking about AD as the security brain of a Windows estate helps explain both its convenience and its risk. Understanding the parts, the common attack paths, and the defenses gives you a practical starting map for protecting it well. An AD environment is arranged into forests, domains, and organizational units so administrators can group identities and apply policies in an orderly way. A forest is the top boundary of trust and policy, while a domain is a subdivision that groups accounts and computers under a common namespace and rules. An organizational unit, OU, is a container used to delegate day-to-day administration and apply settings to specific subsets like departments or locations. Domain controllers are specialized servers that hold the directory database, answer sign-in requests, and replicate changes to one another for resilience. The system volume, SYSVOL, is a shared folder on each domain controller that distributes scripts and group policy data across the domain. Seeing how these components cooperate clarifies where to place controls and where mistakes can spread. AD stores several kinds of identity objects that represent people and machines and the permissions they need for work. User accounts represent humans, computer accounts represent joined devices, and service accounts represent applications or services that must log on to run. Groups bundle accounts into roles so permissions can be granted to the role rather than to each individual account, which is easier to review and audit. Some groups are extremely powerful, including domain admins and enterprise admins, which can change nearly anything within a domain or the entire forest. The principle of least privilege means accounts should only receive the access strictly needed to perform their tasks, and nothing extra that expands exposure. Treating powerful groups like hazardous materials encourages separation, tracking, and tight custody of membership changes. When people sign in, AD authenticates who they are and authorizes what they can do using well-known protocols. Kerberos is the default method in modern domains, issuing time-limited tickets that prove identity and grant access to specific services without repeatedly sending passwords. New Technology LAN Manager, NTLM, is an older challenge response protocol still present for compatibility, yet it carries more risk and should be minimized where possible. Trusts connect domains and forests so accounts from one side can be recognized on the other, which must be limited and monitored because trust extends the blast radius. Delegation allows a service to act on behalf of a user, and careless, unconstrained delegation can leak powerful tickets to attackers. Understanding these flows helps you prefer safer defaults and identify places where legacy behavior creates blind spots. A D is frequently compromised through a chain that begins far from domain controllers and moves inward in quiet steps. A phishing email convinces a user to run a payload, which steals a token or password and gives an attacker control of a workstation. From there, credential dumping targets sensitive logon material and tries pass the hash or pass the ticket, which reuse secrets or tickets to impersonate accounts without knowing their passwords. Lateral movement explores neighboring systems with remote tools until an account with administrative rights is reached, often widening access with unnoticed group changes. Privilege escalation then seeks domain-level control through misconfigurations, weak delegation settings, or vulnerable services with excessive permissions. Visualizing this path clarifies why endpoint hygiene, credential protection, and strict admin boundaries matter as much as hardening the domain controllers themselves. Managing who sits in powerful groups and how rights are distributed is central to keeping AD predictable and reviewable. Least privilege means granting exact permissions to the smallest practical scope and removing them when tasks end so unused access does not become an attacker's tool. Just Enough Administration, JEA, encapsulates that idea by defining precisely which commands or operations an admin role can perform rather than handing them a broad keyring. Delegation on organizational units assigns routine tasks like password resets or group membership updates to local support teams without overreaching into domain-wide rights. Clear separation between account administrators, workstation administrators, and server administrators limits inadvertent credential reuse across different risk zones. Documented change paths and periodic reviews keep delegations aligned with real work and not historical convenience. Credentials are the currency of AD attacks, so endpoints and domain controllers must guard them carefully at all times. The Local Security Authority Subsystem Service, LSAS, process holds sensitive secrets in memory, which means preventing direct access, disabling unnecessary credential providers, and auditing outbound credential material is vital. Turning off legacy W-Digest credential storage, enforcing network-only logons for privileged accounts, and limiting interactive logons on servers cut down opportunities for theft. Microsoft's Credential Guard uses virtualization-based isolation to protect secrets on supported systems, reducing the chance that memory dumping tools will succeed. Network-level authentication, NLA, for remote desktop adds a layer that forces identity checks before full connections are established, which helps protect remote sessions. Small technical settings like these add friction that attackers must overcome before moving beyond the first compromised machine. Strong authentication and disciplined secret hygiene reduce both the chance and the impact of credential compromise. Long, unique passwords and fine-grained password policies let you apply tougher rules to sensitive groups without punishing everyone with the same requirements. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, adds something you have or something you are to something you know, which significantly blunts phishing and password reuse. Local Administrator Password Solution randomizes and frequently rotates the local administrator password on each machine, so a single local secret cannot unlock others. Group Managed Service Accounts, GMSAs, give services identities that automatically rotate complex keys and avoid hard-coded passwords in configuration files or scripts. Combining these measures creates layered resistance where even successful theft yields less reusable access. Group policy is the engine that applies security settings across devices, so its governance deserves careful attention and steady hygiene. A group policy object, GPO, is a bundle of settings that can configure passwords, firewalls, scripts, and software restrictions when linked to the correct organizational units or the domain. Restricting who can create, edit, and link GPOs prevents wide changes by accident or by a compromised admin, and routine reviews help catch risky or obsolete items. The SYSVL share distributes policy and scripts, which means file permissions must be tight, and unknown scripts or installers should be treated as suspicious. Avoid storing secrets in preferences or startup scripts, and require code signing where possible so only trusted configuration changes are applied. Change control, testing rings, and version tracking make policy changes safer and easier to unwind when needed. Detecting AD abuse early depends on choosing a few high-value signals and watching them consistently with context. Domain controller security logs reveal failed and successful sign-ins, ticket requests, replication behavior, and group membership changes that together tell the story of identity use. Alerts for unusual replication requests, sudden spikes in Kerberos service ticket activity, or creation of new domain admins outside maintenance windows can expose active intrusions. Workstation and server logs add detail about process starts, service installations, and remote logons that often precede domain-level actions. Decoy or honey accounts and credentials placed where only intruders should touch them provide early warnings without endangering real access. Correlating these signals with known admin schedules reduces noise and highlights behavior that stands out against normal patterns. Recovery planning is essential because even strong defenses can be bypassed by persistence and luck, and resilience protects the mission when prevention fails. System state backups of domain controllers capture the directory database and configuration, which are required to rebuild the domain accurately after a serious incident. The Active Directory Recycle Bin preserves recently deleted objects, so accidental removals can be restored with attributes intact, saving time and reducing outages. Authoritative restore reintroduces a known good version of specific objects when replication has spread unwanted changes, which demands disciplined procedures and testing. Practicing forest-level recovery prepares teams for ransomware or destructive attacks that corrupt many domain controllers simultaneously. Written runbooks, regularly tested media, and secure storage ensure the directory can return to a trustworthy state under stress. Several areas consistently create outsized risk in AD and deserve special scrutiny, even in small environments with simple needs. Active Directory Certificate Services, ADCS, enable certificate-based authentication, and weak enrollment templates or misscoped certificate permissions can silently grant domain-level privileges to attackers. Service Principal Names, SPNs, identify services that accept Kerberos authentication, and overly privileged service accounts or misconfigured delegation can leak powerful tickets through offline guessing or ticket abuse. Hybrid identity with Entra ID and Azure AD Connect extends sign-in beyond the data center, meaning synchronization scopes, connector permissions, and password hash flows must match a cautious design. Rotating service secrets, limiting who can request specific certificate templates, and auditing synchronization changes are practical first steps. Treating these zones as high risk yields quick security wins that are easy to justify and explain. Hardening AD succeeds when the pieces reinforce each other instead of acting in isolation, because attackers look for the weakest link across the whole chain. Protecting domain controllers sets trustworthy roots, while endpoint controls block easy credential theft and movement that feeds higher-level compromise. Privileged access strategies ensure that powerful rights appear briefly and in the right places, which reduces the payoff from a stolen token or password. Group policy hygiene turns configuration into a predictable asset rather than a hidden liability, and monitoring ties actions to people and times for fast investigation. Recovery planning acknowledges uncertainty and gives the organization a way to repair trust quickly when events get ahead of defenses. Building this combination patiently creates a resilient directory that reliably supports everyday work. Securing the day-to-day tools administrators use also matters because a single sloppy step can undo careful design choices across the environment. Administrative PowerShell consoles should launch with constrained endpoints defined by JEA, so maintenance sessions never expose broad authority unnecessarily. Remote Desktop Protocol (RDP) access should require NLA and be limited to approved jump servers that log and alert on unusual connection patterns and session durations. Browser use from PAW devices should be eliminated, which avoids web-borne scripts reaching sensitive tokens or credentials during routine research or documentation work. Session recording on privileged consoles adds accountability and allows focused replay when investigating a change that affected many machines. Treating admin workflows as objects to engineer makes security stronger without slowing genuine support work. Change management and documentation sound dull, yet they anchor AD security by making intentions visible and deviations easy to spot. Every delegation, powerful group membership, and trust should have a simple written justification with an owning team and an expected review date. Requests to grant or extend rights should move through a ticketing system that captures who asked, who approved, and which evidence proves the need remains current. Periodic access reviews compare what exists to what is still required, which trims drift and catches stale permissions before they are abused. Baseline configuration documents for domain controllers and member servers help teams detect unauthorized changes quickly and repair them with confidence. When auditors or responders arrive, clear records help them reconstruct timelines and validate that defenses worked as designed. Security education for help desk, desktop support, and junior administrators improves AD defenses because many daily tasks live in their hands. Teaching why credential hygiene matters encourages using run-as techniques and separate accounts rather than casually elevating sessions on shared machines. Showing how to verify the target scope before linking a GPO prevents accidental domain-wide impact from a change intended for a small team. Explaining the signs of token theft or suspicious delegation motivates quick reporting that often shortens an incident. Short, scenario-based job aids tailored to common tasks keep principals close to the actual clicks people perform during a busy day. A culture that prizes careful administration multiplies the benefit of technical controls already in place. Testing assumptions and measuring results keeps AD defenses honest because complex systems drift and attackers adapt over time. Periodic reviews of Kerberos delegation configurations catch services that were granted broad authority years ago and no longer need it today. Simulated phishing and credential theft exercises reveal where endpoint controls, monitoring, and human processes succeed or leave gaps that must be closed. Playbooks for privilege escalation detection should be rehearsed against lab domains so teams can interpret noisy logs under time pressure. Combining tabletop walkthroughs with controlled technical tests gives analysts and administrators a shared picture of what matters most. Steady, transparent improvement invites constructive challenge and builds confidence that the directory can withstand real-world stress. AD security also benefits from collaboration across teams that sometimes see themselves as separate, including identity, endpoint, server, and networking groups. Identity teams understand group design, password policies, and lifecycle management, while endpoint teams know how credentials behave on real workstations under real workloads. Server engineers see how services run, where service accounts are used, and which machines need interactive access to function. Network teams understand which paths exist between tiers and can enforce segmentation that breaks easy lateral movement. Bringing these perspectives together during design and during incidents reduces misunderstandings and closes gaps that siloed work often leaves open. Shared goals and simple metrics help everyone pull in the same direction without confusion. Effective AD monitoring grows more useful when the signals are enriched with context that explains why an event matters. Linking group changes to the change request that authorized them turns a raw alert into a verified action or a high-priority investigation immediately. Adding hostname tiers and admin session markers to sign-in logs lets analysts tell a routine maintenance window from a suspicious after-hours elevation. Tagging service accounts with owners and business purposes helps teams quickly assess the blast radius of a potential compromise. Correlating SYSVOL file changes with GPO version increments highlights tampering that might otherwise hide among normal replication noise. Context turns data into decisions, which shortens the path from detection to containment when time matters most. Active Directory remains a trustworthy backbone when its roots stay hardened, its credentials stay scarce and well protected, its powerful rights appear briefly and with purpose, its policies change predictably, its signals are watched, and its recovery rehearsals are real. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.